live and we're here with interesting people. And today's interesting person is Rob, the phone doctor here in Fort Myers, Florida. Rob, thanks for coming by. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Rob's been a staple in the Fort Myers business community for a while now, and I'm sure it's been an exciting journey. I want to get some insight and some advice, actually, because nowadays, as we all know, everybody's got a cell phone. Mm-hmm. And there are little tricks and tips that I'm sure Rob can enlighten us, and maybe we can learn a thing or two, all right? So thanks for coming along on the journey, and we hope you enjoy the ride. So, Rob, how long have you been here in Fort Myers?
I've been in Fort Myers area for almost 20 years now.
And did you come here specifically to open the phone doctor, or?
I did. I absolutely did. I was approached. I worked before moving here. I worked for a company called Beepers and Phones in Clearwater. And we had stores all over the state of Florida. And one of the owners that had his location, he had a location here on the corner of Colonial and 41, and he also had a location in the Edison Mall. And there was nobody in this town that was repairing phones at all. And I had my little shop in Clearwater, and I was beginning my repair journey there. But he had made me an offer. He said, well, if I find you a house, help you sell your old house, I'll give you my location in Edison Mall. Wow. If you move down here and become business partners with me. And I came down here to visit. I had been in this town before, because prior to working to Beepers and Phones, I used to work for a wireless company called Bobby Allison Wireless. And I was the district manager, so I would come down to this location and check on the employees. And we had a heavy churn rate with employees when we had the location here. So I was here maybe 30 times out of a year. So I was familiar with the area. Came, I liked what I saw, and bought a house, and I moved here. And I basically had the employees run my location in Clearwater while I cleaned up and ran my location here at Edison Mall.
That must have been an exciting journey. I know anytime you take a leap of faith from working with someone else to kind of working on your own, a lot of people get scared, and that's one of the reasons why they won't take that leap.
Understandable. And in my situation, it wasn't the worst case scenario that could happen, but it did not pan out the way it was foretold. The house in Clearwater didn't sell. When push came to shove and pen went to paper, the guy that had set up that partnership quit at the right before it was all done. So I'm sitting here. The house in my Clearwater had gone into foreclosure, and I'm sitting here working at a store, and there wasn't a partnership. So I stayed here as an employee until I could figure out what I was going to do. So yes, taking these leaps of faith, just always know that you don't necessarily have to have a contingency plan. That's too much foresight. But you do have to know that this is something that you must do, you need to do, that you will do. It's that type of conviction that has a tendency to push you forward when things don't go as planned and it's not a smooth sailing. It doesn't matter. So it's like sailing a boat and here comes a storm. It doesn't mean you turn around and go home. It means you batten down the hatches and you prepare for the worst. And as all things, this too shall pass.
Right.
So and here I am, 20 years later, and I'm very happy to be here. So
that's impressive. 20 years in any business is impressive. Were you always an inquisitive kid as far as electronics? Like, I'll tell you a quick story. One Christmas, my parents had bought me this all-in-one stereo. It had a turntable, 8-track, cassette, radio. and it was just one package. There was, not separate components. And so immediately I took it up to my bedroom and I tore it all apart. And of course, when it was all apart, that's when my father saw it and said, "If you don't get this back together again, I'm throwing it out the window." So I was always an inquisitive child as far as electronics. Were you somebody like that?
The irony is that I wasn't. I was interested in taking things apart just to see the inner workings, but to put them back together is not something that was in my wheelhouse. So I broke a lot of things, but it wasn't my passion. That was the surprising thing. I was always fascinated with electronics, but I had never dabbled. I never took it further. It was almost as if my entire life I didn't take any real direct thought on what I wanted to be and where I wanted to go. I kind of just floated along, had the path that was laid before me. So Rob the Phone Doctor, that was all just something that fell in my lap. It was an opportune moment, and all things said and done, normally the normal Rob would have never went for it, but this time I did, and I'm happy with it. But yeah, electronics was not my background.
That's crazy. That's crazy. It's funny how certain situations in life, just being somewhere at the right time in the right place, not even knowing specifically where you are truly headed, those are those moments that make or break a person. Yeah. Like you said, if you take a step to the left, your life is going to be totally different. If you take a step to the right, your life is going to be different also, but it may bring challenges you've never expected. You're going to definitely meet people that you've never would have met any other way. I mean, being in a retail situation, you got people coming in off the street, and I'm sure you get some characters in here to make you laugh.
Very much so, yes. But sometimes laugh, sometimes rage, and sometimes cry. But yes, I've gotten them all now.
Right on. 20 years, that's how long has the cell phone industry been? I mean, it's existed back in the 90s, but that's when they had those briefcase phones that you had to plug into your cigarette lighter, and it was a physical handset in a bag, with a dialer. That's not what I mean. I mean, like cell phones, like as they become now, 20 years, you've seen a lot change in the industry.
So in the beginning of the industry, the rate plans, the plans themselves, the phones, everything was at full retail. So you'd walk into a store and you would pay $2 to $7 a minute, and your phone was at least $1,000.
Right, I remember
and then
that.
even further back before bag phones, they had car phones where the amplifier system would be mounted underneath the seat. And that was even worse. Both units, when we went from car phones to bag phones, the amperage on those units was incredibly powerful. That was the reason why the network did not need to be strong. You could be driving in the middle of the desert and actually receive a phone call because the amplification on both the bag phones as well as the car phones was so massive as compared to what it was now.
I wasn't aware of that.
What the crazy thing is that it was all 100% dangerous.
Really?
So the radiation that was coming off these cellular devices was nothing short of actually a health risk.
Wow.
Yes. So when they fine-tuned how they were going to use cellular and also the battery change is when we saw the greatest efficiency happen. And when that came about, they were able to shield us better from the radiation that would come off phones. And then when as the network grew, it was easier for them to, because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the last time I checked, a bag phone would radiate 6 amps, and now these radiate maybe a third of an amp.
Wow.
So, and that's
a dramatic change.
It's massive, massive. So I think what had ended up happening is the industry got big because they came to a point where it's like buying like the latest and greatest thing. Like the first couple of units that come out, everybody pays full retail, and they will pay a disgusting amount of money to have the first to have. The industry started to slow, So what they did was they got the rate plans under control, an affordable rate exchange for minutes, and then they began the programs of free phones. And that's when and this was the late 90s, but when they started giving free phones away for signing up service, that's when we saw the true explosion of the industry for cell phones in its expansion. Because I remember back, let's say 98. In 98, we would have 12 to 18% population for cellular use.
Wow.
Yeah, it was crazy. You would go and sit in the mall and sell plans, and it was literally 6 out of 10 people didn't have a cell phone, right? And I remember it was so funny. Back then it was, I don't need a cell phone. I have an answering machine. I got voicemail that I pay extra for monthly, right? It was that, and they just didn't. They had to be told how to use it, but once they learned, they were addicted.
Right, they were hooked.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I remember I was working for an IT company at the time, and they had given all of us cell phones, and they were not the big bricks that back in the day, but not much smaller either. They were Nokias, and yeah, the rate plans were very expensive. I mean, a couple $100 a month was not uncommon.
Correct.
You know, and the free phones, it's funny because it sounds like they were, hey, we're just giving away phones, but really they were hooking everybody into those contracts too.
Yes. So even back then, it was a minimum of 2 years. And I've been in the industry for so incredibly long. This is something that I can predict with 100% accuracy. If you take a macro view of the industry, you'll see one of two things happen over and over again over long periods of time. You will see the rate plans themselves become cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, but what corresponds with that is the retail selling of the devices spikes.
Right.
Once we start to see the plan or the prices of units start getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, and we're now starting to see the lower price point, or if not the free cell phone, you'll see the rate plan actually creep back up. And that seesaw, that balancing act has always been the case. Either you had to pay extra for a phone, but your rate plan was great, or you had to pay extra for your phone, but your rate plan was cheap.
Right.
And that's always been the case. And even currently going on right now, we're starting to see like the companies that sell cell phones with free phones. Those free phones coordinate with a particular rate plan. That rate plan you must pay for, let's say, 2 to 3 years. But it's that price point that you must pay to get the phone for free.
Right.
Where 2 years ago, the rate plan was dirt cheap, but you paid full price
For the phone.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, is there any benefit from, let's say, a prepaid service? Like I use Boost, but somebody else might not want prepaid. They might want, like you said, a 2-year contract. Is there any benefit one way or the other?
So there's a nuanced benefit.
Okay.
So simply structured, in the United States, we only have 3 carriers. We have T-Mobile, we have AT&T, we have Verizon. Every single other service that is out there are the children of
Right.
those 3 parent companies. Boost is to Sprint, which is to T-Mobile.
That's who they've been absorbed by?
Right.
Okay.
So Cricket is to AT&T, Metro
okay.
is to T-Mobile, Cricket, AT&T, and then Boost is to Sprint, which is owned by T-Mobile. But so the biggest difference is all the other companies, we call them MVNOs, and then you have your 3 parent companies. The biggest difference between those two, and it doesn't matter whether it's Cricket or Metro or Boost, or the variants thereof, like Straight Talk, Simple Mobile, all of them. An MVNO is a network-based coverage, okay? So you as a Boost customer use Sprint's network,
Right.
period. Now, if I am a Sprint customer or I am a T-Mobile customer, when I use my phone, I am able to use my existing network like you use your Boost, but also I'm able to roam, or in other words, use other people's networks to
Okay.
get my reception. So you will see that going with the parent company, you get a little bit greater reception or consistency, but in all honesty, you literally pay 40% more. And the math is simple. You pay 40% more for your rate plans, but you do not get 40% more coverage.
Okay.
And the other big difference is the customer service. So if you know what you like what you like, you don't need anyone constantly telling you that you need to upgrade, and you're happy with your phone, you're happy with your money, you're happy with your rate plan, you're happy with the service, you are an MVNO, you are a prepaid customer. Someone that wants the latest and greatest and wants to hustle their deal and wants to hustle their phone.
Right.
And they're fickle, so they always want to get the latest and greatest phone, even though the phone works fine. It may have a couple scratches. Now you want a new phone. You are definitely a parent company, an AT&T, a T-Mobile, or a Verizon customer. That's just how that all works.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of scratches, what do you find is the most common reason people bring their cell phones to you?
There's three, and I'll put them in order. First is the screen, the LCD. Second is battery, and then third is charger port.
Oh, okay.
If you were a cell phone tech and you just only knew how to do those three things, then you are doing 80% of what the other stores that do it all do. You are literally doing 80% of their work. So, and it's as simple as now. We at Rob the Phone Doctor, we do more than that. Only because I'm an old dog. I've been around forever. So you know what I mean. I've kind of seen it all. When I first started, I didn't have parts. I would have to cannibalize.
Right.
When I first started repairing, I called it Frankenstein because I was a parts swapper. I would buy a phone, a broken phone, or a wet damaged phone on the internet, and I would cannibalize that to fix people's
That's
phones.
not uncommon. I've seen, like, I watch a lot of watch builders and stuff like that, and that's very common for people to do that because sometimes you just can't get the parts any other way.
Absolutely. The company that brought me to Rob the Phone Doctor would be eBay, because that was the place that I could buy. All right, this phone works, but the front screen is broken. All right, well, other than the front screen, I can use every other part.
Right.
And back then, the newest, latest, greatest was hinged flip phones. And those flip assemblies would break. They would crack. And nobody sold those parts. So you were forced into buying a phone that it worked, but the screen was broken, or it didn't charge anymore, and you just start swapping parts. So, yeah, eBay was the quintessential for Rob the Phone Doctor back in the day.
I believe it. Now, again, since you've been in the business so long, you've seen cell phones evolve. I mean, they literally went from just being phones to multimedia creation stations. What was one of the most shocking, well, not shocking like, oh my God, but surprising features that you've seen pop up on a cell phone that you would not have expected?
So this is where I'm going to sound really old, okay? So the biggest hurdle that I had to get my head around, and mind you now, I was in the business for years. So the concept of picture messaging. It was a concept I could not get my head around. I understood it. I would teach people how to do it, but I couldn't get my head around it. It made no sense to me whether I could send you a text, which I could get my head around, that those characters from your keyboard can be transposed into tones, which transpose into a different phone. But the pictures, man, I just couldn't understand it. And the main reason why I couldn't understand
Are you
it...
talking about the emojis?
Oh, no.
Oh.
I'm talking about literally take your phone, take a picture,
picture
and send it to your friend.
Oh, okay. Wow.
That's how old I am. So what we didn't realize, and now it's part, is that was the first introduction to cell phone internet service.
Right.
Because when a phone sends a picture message, that's a multimedia it uses the internet.
Right.
It can't use your cellular towers to do it. It had to use the media response. And this was before you could even go on the web. So first was picture messaging, and that was like, oh my God, that set precedent about the absolute desire for phones. This was a direct hit and a permanent damage to camera companies across the world
Yes.
because the rate in which the improvements of cell phone cameras laid was almost on an annual basis,
Right.
which is what we're so used to getting new phones every year. That was part of it.
Right.
In the beginning, you would have a feature, and then by the following year, it had doubled in its advancements and accessibility. And we've passed that now. We don't really get extra speciality in phones any longer. We've hit that stagnant area.
The little plateau.
Right. But that was because back then you would have the first iPhone. It didn't do picture messaging. The very first iPhone, they're like, well, great, I can take a picture and I can do text and I can make a phone call, but I can't send that picture to my friend. Now,
You could email it though, right?
absolutely email,
Okay.
yes. Right?
But not directly phone to phone.
Absolutely not. LGs, Nokias, Motorola's, they all had already were doing picture messaging.
Oh, really?
That was the one thing that was the biggest gripe on iPhone number one. From what I understood, the pushing and the rushing to get to the iPhone to the market was the major delay. That's why we didn't see it in the first iPhone.
Okay.
But once Apple got that picture messaging forward in the iPhone 3, they're exploding. The company was even thought that they may go out of business when the first iPhone came out.
Wow.
I remember I was on an airplane and it had Steve Jobs on the front, and I read the entire article, and the industry was really hard on him, really, really nasty on him. Nobody understood what was going behind the curtains,
Right.
at the Wizard of Oz,
Yeah. There's a lot of that.
There was a lot of stuff, but back to the original question. I'm sorry I went off on a
No,
tangent.
it's all good. All good.
But the biggest effects were picture messaging, then email with the BlackBerries.
Okay.
And what that did is that it involved employees. Now it wasn't personal. It wasn't
Right.
pleasure.
Right.
It began into business. And BlackBerry had a way in which they did email serving that was unseen by the entire company. Nobody even came close to
Really?
doing the email capabilities. The email servers were so fast, they even beat your PC.
Really?
On the speed in which you could get
I was
your
not
email.
aware of that. I mean, I had known that they became very prominent amongst people in business, especially in the political scene, where information needed to get out that quickly. But I didn't realize that their servers were so beefed up.
You could literally be logged into your email server and have your BlackBerry next to you, and you got a 15-second delay on your PC.
Wow.
And that BlackBerry already got it.
Wow. And
That-
where data is king, that's
Yeah.
a big deal.
Absolutely. So there's your second block on the foundation of internet. So you had picture messaging first, and then you had email. And then with that, that was the biggest thing. And this is where we started as companies that sold cell phone plans. This is when the companies like Verizon and AT&T and Alltel and Singular and all of them started to push us really hard to internet. And at that time, the internet, the only thing you could do is do wallpapers and ringtones. And
Right.
it wasn't a website. It was just a marketplace with terrible graphics. Right? And
Yes, I remember.
I remember they would charge, it was $6.99 in the beginning. It was $6.99 a month, which we would never pay now. Right? $6.99 a month, and you paid by the megabyte.
Yep.
Paid by the megabyte. And if you didn't pay attention and you accidentally left that utility on your phone, that thing would go crazy.
Yeah.
And but the major things. And then after internet, then we had browsing. And after browsing, the web browsing, and this was all of a sudden people started to pull away from their PCs and their laptops.
Right.
Because it was all on the phone. Not as good as our PCs and laptops, but good.
I think people were willing to take a little hit on the performance with the portability. I mean, you're going to work, you're sitting on the train, you're sitting on the bus. You don't have this big laptop you got to unfurl. Here's my phone. Here's the news. It was at least an efficient time consumer or time waster.
Yes, yes. So, and then after that, Apple comes out with their iPhone. Now, I'm not saying that Apple started this, but Apple was at the cusp of the beginning, which was the introduction to apps. And apps was simply another name for programs, right? But they were small, they were skeleton, and they did simple things, and most of them were preloads. So you'd download the app, and the app would function from the resources of the phone and didn't necessarily use a whole lot of internet. But that is the trend, and still is the trend that dominates this industry. And out of all the improvements to phones, as it stands now, apps is still one of the most, or is the most dominating thing and most impressive thing that has gotten us all completely and utterly addicted.
Right.
The movement forward will be the metaverse.
When you say apps, are you also considering like gaming or just productivity kind of apps?
When apps first came out, it was all games. What was it? Angry Birds. Remember
Yes.
Angry Birds, right? Snake on the Nokia phone.
A
right?
buddy of mine used to spend many hours playing that game.
Those are the things that, like, it was hard for me to sell a 40-year-old an app on a phone, right?
Right.
And I didn't really sell them, but they're like, we don't do games. And then Angry Birds came out, and that was a viral app, an absolute viral app. And you had 80-year-olds, 12-year-olds,
Right.
40-year-olds, 20-year-olds, all playing this game. And that showed the developers how feverishly obsessive they could become over their little games, their little programs.
Yeah, no joke.
And so this game set the precedent, and the understanding of how much in control we could be put in by what we view on our little tiny boxes.
Okay. It just escaped me. What are some features that you'd like to see upcoming in cell phones that you don't see now?
So what I can predict that you won't say, I had a television interview with a major news network about this, but that was 15 years ago. And they had asked me, what do I foresee in the industry 15 years ago that will be something of commonplace? And I told them that if you walked to Coconut Point Mall or walked through the Edison Mall, you will have billboards and signs all around you. But as you walk by that large screen, it will advertise specifically to you to get your attention.
Like how Google AdSense is targeted marketing?
Absolutely. But because it will pick up your ID, it will know who you are. And like if I walked by, it's going to blow up Bass Pro Shops. That's what you're going to see, Bass Pro Shops and fishing and this, that, and the other, because that's my thing. But my phone knows that's my thing. Right? Your grandma may walk by it, and then her favorite Mahjong game will come up as an advertisement. We will be saturated with personalized ads almost to a point of rudeness. But that's what I foresee. And then the introduction to the metaverse, which in itself is, and I truly believe that's where we're going. Our cell phones will become archaic. It'll be not something that we do. Imagine putting a helmet on or going to a special room or going into sitting in another chair, and you will be able to do everything. You will grocery shop, you will go to work, you will interact with friends, you will watch movies, and you will not get up from the chair. The movie The Matrix, I don't know if they'll use this at batteries, but I couldn't tell you.
It's not that far.
No.
It's not that far far-fetched as a concept.
Correct.
You hit on something I wanted to talk about. Talking about the advertising where it's almost rude. I can understand that because Times Square in New York, it's kind of like that. And I was just on a cruise ship where they had, no matter where you walked, the moment you walk past it, it had a trigger for a screen, And maybe it wasn't targeted directly at me, but it was definitely targeted marketing of, hey, come into this jewelry store and buy $1,000 worth of jewelry, you know?
Absolutely. So when you're in Publix and you go by the freezer section, and as
Right.
soon as you enter, the pop, 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 all the lights,
Right.
expect it to run like that.
Okay. Now, real quick, because now I remember my original question.
Okay.
Can you give a simple description of what the metaverse is to someone who's not familiar?
Sure. This is a world, a visual, and that's the first thing you'll pick from it. A visual a world that has sights and sounds. No real physical movement, no real physical touch yet. In other words, you won't be able to smell a flower. Your hands will not feel like they're wet yet. That's all going to come, right? I believe there'll be probably meta suits that we'll
Right.
put on, and we'll be able to interact with our physical body to reenact everything. But just imagine a world.
Almost like an avatar, like from the movie Avatar,
Oh,
where
yes.
they were able to take over a physical being, even though their personal body was somewhere else.
That is, for my brain, that is too far ahead of.
Okay.
But a virtual world that your brain will be completely sold on the fact of wherever you are supposed to be, you actually are. You will be tricked in every way fashionable. That is what we would call a metaverse.
Okay.
And the interesting about metaverse is that imagine you are in your own world. Let's say you're playing the game Fortnite. While you're in your game playing, there'll be billboards in your game that
Yes.
you're playing. You'll look, right? It's Marlboro or Budweiser or whatever, Temu, right? And that's what's going to happen. You're going to see that for every step forward in technology that we move, in tandem will be advertisement.
It's funny you mentioned that. I mentioned earlier that I used to work for an IT company, and one of the projects that we were working on at the time. Now, to put this in historical perspective, the fastest computers at the time were running 200 to 400 megahertz. Okay, so this is going back a ways, but it was called VRML, Virtual Reality Modeling Language, and it was early virtual reality via the internet. The biggest bottlenecks we were experiencing at the time were that we just couldn't get the data pushed out there fast enough. The computers were not able to render these worlds that we had created in 3D fast enough, so they kind of looked like a half-assed Tron graphics,
Pixelization, yeah.
Right, but one of the projects specifically that we were working on was a mall to go shopping, that we had partnered with some clothing stores and some home goods stores, basically, and walking through this virtual reality world, you would be able to go shopping. And again, this is back in the 90s, so people were still looking at this like, oh, wow, one of these days, now you have Amazon, although that's not virtual reality, online shopping has changed, so that's become accessible, where even to be able to buy online back in the 90s was a big deal. But what you're talking about with the metaverse is that now they'll be so immersed.
Correct. Absolutely. And remember, they'll be able to, and I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist or spread negativity, which is not what I want us to do. I want us to be mindful but embrace it with open arms.
Right.
Is that they will be able to influence your decision making that will be out of your control.
Right.
The colors they choose, they know that you buy more when you see more blue, right? You buy more when your favorite song is playing in the background.
Right, a little subliminal advertising.
Absolutely. You will be great. You will be manipulated greater, and because it will be in the realm of marketing and advertisement, we'll let it slide.
Right.
But it still, I mean, I think it's just amazing. But that the early on online shopping was the foundation of concept that the metaverse was based off of. So you were at the scratching surface of what it was all to be.
Yeah, and unfortunately, that project due to the fact that the machines at the time couldn't process the information that we needed the way we needed. The project ultimately died a slow death. Something like that now, it wouldn't be such a big deal because you got such bandwidth. Again, we were dealing with 56K modems. 14.4 was a big deal for some people, But now that the equipment is high speed, I see the metaverse being a huge influential and useful tool that should be taken with a grain of salt because, again, as you mentioned, people could be manipulated easily, without them even realizing that they are being manipulated. I mean, we see that in life now. But once it becomes all-consuming, what do you think is the benefit of that? Like, once there used to be an adage that the way to make money in perpetuity was to have a cable connected to your house, i.e. the electric company, water, gas, cable. If you had a line into somebody's house, you had them for life. So with the metaverse, I see them having us for life. I'm wondering what the benefit, what do you see I guess what I'm saying is, what do you see as the benefits of the metaverse, and then what do you see as some of the cautions?
So from my perspective, you're going to have a perspective of old and young, okay? So old, we're going to back reference what we remember.
Right.
Okay. So the metaverse is going to be interesting, and we will poke around and prod, but the concept in itself is too intrusive. It's like, this is too much. No, I need and want some privacy.
Right.
But for the youth, the phones themselves intrude on their privacy, and the youth do not realize it. So as that progresses and gets more, it will be just something, it is what it is. As you and I sit here on our phones, knowing that these apps track us on what we do and communicate, we just know that that's just the app world. That's just how it works.
That's how it is.
It's not evil. It's not evil. It just wants to know, do I like Kraft macaroni and cheese, or I don't care what macaroni and cheese I buy? That's really what it is. I won't take a paranoid stance on it, but we won't live around long enough to see how accepting the youth will be to it. My question for it is to what end? My question for it is, if you don't need me to go to a park because I can put my Metasuda on and visit the park, and it's a perfect day. It's the right temperature. I can hear birds singing. I can feel wind blowing on my face, and I will feel that I am outside. Why would I need to go outside?
See, I was going to ask, do you feel that it might diminish the human experience?
We haven't, David, we haven't defined what it is. We have our own personal understandings of where we move forward and how we want to do it. But all this technology, we still haven't figured out, what are we here for?
Right.
And if it is to care for each other and be good to each other and let each other grow, I'm not sure if the metaverse would be responsible enough for that, because we are children of this earth. We were born of this earth. And for us to put on a suit and stay inside of a home with air conditioning and never go back to the place where we came from, going outside and physically communicating and having communicational skills, it's like, wait a minute, what are we here for? And yeah, you bring up, I don't understand it, but that's what they push right now. That's what they push.
So you see the metaverse as being a very powerful tool coming up. Is there anything else that you see coming up for the future, like with cellular technology, whether it being better connectivity? Like, I know a lot of the cell phone companies like to broadcast, oh, we've got nationwide coverage, but those maps are not really accurate.
The coverage or consistency of coverage of cell phone companies, you're speaking to a man that has physically been in the industry for 25 years. That's how long I've actually been here. 25 years. I will say the coverage, the network coverage that we have stopped 10 years ago.
Wow.
Stopped. We don't get more. We won't get more either. Now, the speed and reach of data, which is going to be that one is moving forward. But as for reception, you could still have Verizon and be in downtown Manhattan, and you will have zero signal strength.
I understand that.
And it won't improve. I just know it won't improve. And like their introduction to 4G to 5G, remember now, that's just data based.
Right.
That doesn't change your voice and text.
Right.
That's just data. 5G should have had a massive lawsuit because what they did on 5G was sell its futuristic potential of what it will and can do 20 to 30 years from now.
Not what it's capable of doing at the moment.
Correct. And everybody, Verizon, you can download a movie in less than a minute.
Right.
That will be true 20 years from now. It will not be true now. It won't be true 5 years from now. That technology is in its infantile state. But they sold everybody. They sold the carriers. They sold the consumer, everything to that 5G, and it was oversold.
Now you have places like Japan that they have a different standard, and they have like one of the fastest Wi-Fi networks in the world, don't they?
Yes.
What's keeping it from happening here?
The retardation of growth in the United States is, and this is almost with everything, is and always will be money. And what that means is that they will squeeze every drop of blood from every turnip before they grab a new one. So it may be in the first 5 years they pay for their R&D. And then the rest is collecting as much money because now they've paid for it. All
Right.
that money until they're forced into giving the new example. Funny thing I read, the reel-to-reel tape recorder was found, it was created and founded in the early 1900s. And when I say that, I'm talking 1912.
Wow.
Reel-to-reel magnetic tape, okay? What we used in the 50s and 60s for the supercomputers.
Right.
That was created back then. Bell, Mama Bell had created that because they had an R&D department, found it, labeled it, patented it, and then put it away. If in 1912 they decided to take that technology and work forward with it, we would have had supercomputers in the 50s. If we had supercomputers in the 50s, cars would be 100% different now because the computers would have helped us build better cars and design better cars. And it just boggles my brain of how we can find technology and stifle it forever. A cellular ideology was Palm Pilots. Remember the Palm Pilots? Well, when the iPhone came out, everybody jumped on this the smartphone game. Like everybody did it. Palm was no different. Well, Palm struggled. All right, they didn't have it on email. wasn't as good as BlackBerry. Their smartphone compared to an iPhone wasn't even comparable. But they had a technology that, and this was back 2002, 2003. They created a phone called the Palm. It was Palm Pixie. Palm Pixie was a phone that kind of looked like a pebble. It was small. It was black. It was circular. Simple as hell. No charger ports on this phone. None. And you opened it up, and there's your phone / cell phone. It was because it charged by inductive charging. That far back, wireless charging was created and on a phone and available to us. And then Palm got bought by HP, and then HP put that technology on the burner. And we didn't see it come back until the last, 4 years ago?
Oh, really?
Isn't that crazy? And this is what I mean. They'll take technology that has the potential to expedite massive things on a massive scale, and they will wait until they've drawn all the blood out of their other turnips first before they introduce it.
I do
Why?
understand that.
because the cameras aren't getting better. The screens, our eyes, we can't see more than we already other
Right,
than
right.
like say a virtual reality. But you see, we can't get better on the cameras. We can't get better on the screens. So what do? We come up with an old technology, wireless inductive charging, which on a side note, don't use it.
Oh, really?
It's terrible. It puts a hell of a stress on the power supply of the phone. It puts a hell of a stress on the battery. And you'll notice every time you take it off your pad, it's hot.
I was going to say, you're talking about the circular pads.
Oh, yes.
Because I know that was real popular for people to even build them into furniture.
Oh, yeah. New cars, they put them on there. I don't use them. I watch people's phones get truly broken and destroyed through those things.
Wow.
Case in point, all right, I got my phone, charger port doesn't work anymore, but it's wireless.
Right.
Well, I don't want to spend money on a charger port, so I'll just use the wireless. And within 3 months, that phone either is you have to buy a new battery and a new charger port, or it won't charge anymore.
Right.
All from the wireless charging ability. It's a convenience that you can use. I'd say use it in the car and you're doing GPS directions, so you'll go on a constant stream of charging. I say use it then, but even then, I believe an inductive charger it can't do anything with the stored energy, right? So as that coil gets all the energy that will move your coil on your phone that then turns on the battery, there really isn't a good enough technology that when the battery is full, the coil stops.
Oh, okay.
The coil is constantly throwing
charge.
That's why it's hot. It may have charged and got fully charged at 1 o'clock in the morning, but you pick it up at 7 in the morning, it's hot because of that.
And that's one of the reasons why I don't use it. I wasn't aware that was with the reasoning why. But yeah, I felt uncomfortable about how hot it had made my phone.
Yeah.
Because I got it. I was like, oh, check out this cool little pad. No, okay, just throw my phone on it. No problem. I got a concern.
Yeah.
I do sleep with my phone not too far from my bed. And God forbid a fire when I'm sleeping. That scared the hell out of me.
Absolutely. Chargers, regular chargers, the best chargers money can buy are always from the manufacturer, period. There is not and never will be a better charger, in my experience, than the ones that the manufacturers make, no matter what you spend. But when you leave your phone on the original manufacturer's charger overnight, it really does have resistors and diodes. That battery is going to throw back a certain amount of resistance when that battery is full. And when that happens, it reacts to the charger. The charger sees that resistance and stops charging. The aftermarkets, most of them don't, because that's intellectual property of the manufacturer. Right. You're not allowed to know what that resistance is, so you can put. And then me as a manufacturer, an outside manufacturer of a charger, I want my charger to work for Samsungs, LGs, Apples. I want them to work for all. I want to build one charger for that. And therein lies the secret of the problem of charging. That's why
each company has their own protocol for the charging.
Absolutely. What I've found to make it more affordable is always use Apple to Apple. Always Apple chargers, always to Apple products. The gray area is Androids. You can use safely a Nokia charger on a Motorola that works on that Samsung or that works on that LG. As long as that charger has their symbol on there, that will be safe. I can use my Motorola on my Samsung. I can use my Samsung on my LG, but don't ever use any of those on an Apple.
But the gas station chargers, forget about it.
Forget about it.
So, Rob, let me ask you a question. What are some tips and tricks, we hinted on it earlier, that people can do to either protect their cell phones, like don't be a rageaholic and throw it across the room, that's going to break the screen, What are some things that people could do to make their phones last a lot longer, stay looking nicer, etc.?
Sure. And this is based off the most common repairs that I see. So first and foremost, the most inexpensive thing you can do is buy a tempered glass screen protector, okay? I don't want to oversell its ability to protect your device. But I have seen it work better than most cases. I also, when, well, I'll have, I buy used phones. So you'll see the wear and tear on these new screens. And I don't care the grade or quality of glass that they say that they use. All that stuff gets pitted. All that stuff gets deep scratches. All that stuff will get, too much rubbing. It'll frost up. And you can buy a tempered glass screen protector for less than $4 on the internet. And it is you could, I'll see them come in. The phone looks wrecked. And then I'll pull that terrible tempered glass, I'll pull that thing off, and it looks like a brand new phone again.
So it's like a first line of defense.
Absolutely, super important. And cheap. The second thing is casing. A case helps, but there's some things that you must think about. Number one, if let's say you work out in the field, okay? You work landscaping or carpentry or whatnot, and you use an impact-resistant case, right? OtterBox or
Right.
what. If you want your phone looking new, get in the habit of once a month, take it out of that case.
Oh, okay.
Clean it. And I'm not saying you have to scrub it or anything.
No, but just wipe it down.
It will accumulate sand, dirt, and grime, and all that is little scratches. And it'll scratch the edges, and it'll scratch the back, it'll scratch everything. Some of them will be so nasty as they'll start to literally take the paint away.
Wow.
So then it'll just look wrecked. So getting out of the case once a month if you work out in dirt in the field and stuff like that. If it's always in a purse, it's not so much. Number two, so the case, and then or the tempered glass, and then we have a case, and we've already touched on this before, but this is one of the most common, is not using the original charger on your phone. It has proven to me it's a good thing to bring up. This problem that we have with chargers and batteries is a relatively new problem. We didn't have this problem, for the most part, we did not have this problem 5 years ago. I have seen, by using cheap chargers, is the only way I can put it, I have seen battery failure, I've seen charger port failure, I have seen camera failure, which I'll explain in a minute. Camera failure, reception issues, destroying of the battery. You have to realize that if that charger goes bad, it isn't in theater. It doesn't do a puff of smoke. It doesn't make noise. When it fails, it just nonchalantly fails. But through that failure, you could do a power surge. So your phone will go zapped. And the next thing you know, you pull it off the charger and the screen doesn't touch anymore. Or the camera, believe it or not, the camera doesn't focus. It's all because that charger surged that poor phone and now has made a mess of everything. Besides the fact that might ruin the charger port. I've seen them most common is microphone failure. Almost all phones, their charger port and microphone that you speak into are on the same exact component.
Right.
So it's all one. And it'll be so surprised. So many times it's like, well, your charger port's bad. That's why your microphone doesn't work. And putting it that way is confusing to the customer. They're like, but it charges fine. Like, I'm sure it does. But what you don't realize is your microphone was connected to it.
Right.
And there's only small components. And when that thing surged, I'll be like, do you use a cheap charger? I'm like, yeah, something I picked up at Walgreens. Now it just costs you $150 of a charger port because you wanted to save $6 to $8 buying it at Walgreens.
Right.
The irony is a perfect example. Apple is probably, for me, the most notorious when it comes to charger mismatch and battery swelling and failure, charger port swelling and failure. Because I have personally experienced, as well as customers, that it is a night and day experience of how long that battery lasts, how well that phone performs, and how long you have to wait before you need to maintenance it. because the phones are just like cars. They need the battery will die. Is all from not using an Apple charger. The newest Apple chargers, they are cheaper from their website, are cheaper than the cheap chargers at Best Buy.
Really?
For the newest 30-watt C-type charger cube from Apple is $19 from their website.
Wow.
Now, granted, their cable's $19 too. That's a little much. But the point being is that you'll go to Best Buy and it's $29, $39, $49, $59
Right.
for a charger that's not even in the same realm of quality and durability and long lasting as an Apple product charger is. And I know people are like, they don't believe in Apple all the time, but let me tell you from personal experience, the best charger port ever made by any company in the history of cell phones was the Lightning port by Apple.
Wow.
And the only reason why the 15 got the C-type that we have now, the only reason why that happened was that the EU forced Apple.
That was recently, right?
Yeah, they said, look, you can't sell the iPhone in Europe if you don't do C-type. And their ridiculous argument was it's better for the environment. And it was like, well, if it's better for the environment, maybe you don't let people make new phones every 6 months.
Yes.
Why don't you say, hey, 4 years, right? You want to make an actual impact? Make sure your customers do what they can to save their phone and don't buy the latest and greatest every single year or every 6 months, number one. And then number two, don't allow the manufacturers to come out with a new model every single year because of the environment. Those two things alone, now you don't have to regulate the ports.
Right.
You don't have to regulate them. You know what I mean? You just say, look, stop flooding the market with lithium ion and all the electronics. Just don't do it. I mean, that's what they do. But case, the tempered glass, case, and charger. And in all honesty, I really think you go those three, you will double the life of your phone.
Wow.
Double it. What people don't understand about brands, you know when you go to the store, they got off-brand potato chips, and
Right.
they got Lay's potato chips, right? And, there's a taste difference.
They got Lay's and then they got Plays.
Right, yes. It's the same thing on phones. We don't know it. So the two that I'll bring up, because the most common, is Samsung and Apple. Apple has Apple products. Samsung has S series, and A is an Apple series. A series, S series. The A series is what we would say consumer grade. That phone is made inexpensive. They're not made bad. They're just made inexpensive. So instead of metal, we're using plastic.
Right.
But they're made inexpensive, and then the software is not really made for longevity. So about 2 years. So, but let's say in the same retrospect, a Samsung S series, so a Galaxy S10 or the Note series, the Razor, the Flip, the Fold, those are all high end. Nobody understands, but there is a considered software engineer perspective when they build these devices. And the minimum years on S series and Apple's is 6 years.
Now, when you say 6 years, that's like the product length of life.
The minimum life expectancy.
Oh, okay.
Minimum. So minimum is, that's like buying a car, and the minimum shelf life on the car is 6 years. We don't even get that out of cars. Right?
Especially at these prices.
Right. But let me tell you, I can tell you from personal experience, if you use, say it's an Apple product, if you use your Apple cable, your Apple charger, you charge at night when you go to bed, and you can use it 7 days a week, that your battery's life expectancy will be a minimum of 3 years and could go as last as 5 to 6 years. The analogy I'll tell my customers is that you have a brand new Porsche 911 that you just bought.
Right.
Do you put 93 octane in there? Do you put 89 octane?
Do you
or
put
do
the cheap gas or the
87
good
in?
stuff?
Right?
I hear you.
And it makes a significant
Sure it
difference
does.
on
Because
that
the
engine.
car was engineered for a specific grade.
Correct. And you can do minimum of 89,
Right.
but you're better off doing 93. Well, when there's almost a $70 cent difference between the 2 gallons,
Right.
But it makes the difference. You literally, I still replace batteries on the iPhone 5S. What, people are still using them? Yes, because they didn't know any better, and they use their original cable and their original cube, and they leave it by the nightstand and they don't unplug it. They don't take it on trips or anything.
Right.
And they got in the habit from day one to plug it in before they go to bed every night. And now I get this phone 8 years later, and all they need is a battery. Everything else is fine. Samsung throttles their devices. They don't know that. So their processor on the cell phone itself is the software holds back that processor. They're
Right.
like, okay, give us 70%. Don't give us 90.
Right.
Don't give us 100. Give us 70%. And once you get the major software, so you're like, say you're on software 6. Well, from 6, you just have enhancements and improvements and bug fixes. When you go from software 6 to software 7, that's when they unthrottle the processor a little bit more. And then you get software 8. They unthrottle the process a little more.
Okay.
That's
I
where,
wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, that's where the correspondence between the 6 years. So you'll see, like, if you want to look at iPhones and Androids, when you watch that number, the first number, when that number changes, if it goes from 10 to 11, 16 to 17, or whatever, know that that is the unthrottling of your processor, because it needs to get faster because now it's getting older.
Right.
Yeah. So most people don't even know that, but it's true.
I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah. So your cheap phones, their life expectancy is 2 years. That's why you'll barely get a software update.
Okay.
Mind you now, cheap isn't terrible. Some of the best phones that I have ever seen were the most cheapest or free phones from LG. And you open it up and it was built on the minimum, the absolute minimum. But this phone that cost brand new in the box, $79,
Wow.
is still 8 years going. 8 years, still going. 8
Wow.
years.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it's all because well, LG did it different. LG just they did full processing out the box, but Samsung and Apple have always. People tried to say that Apple did the reverse, where they throttled the unit. No, that what they did is they balanced the consistent energy coming from the battery with the processor. They're like, okay, the battery is starting to get wore.
Right.
So tell the processor to slow down, or we're going to accelerate the death rate on that battery.
Right.
That's what they got in trouble for. But if you really think about it, they did it for the best of the customer.
I can understand that.
Now they've changed the gears. That's why this won't happen again. So now that phone comes out of the box throttled. It's slower than what it can be.
Wow.
Slow, and good luck trying to fully unthrottle it. But you'll notice every year or every time the major software comes out, as the software increases, so is the processor speed. So you can keep a consistent process, or you can keep a consistent experience for over 6 years, because you don't technically get the full benefit of that engine until you're near
much
the end
later
of
on.
life.
Wow.
Yeah.
Are there any specific phones or brands that you kind of underrated and people don't know about?
So I like Motorola for its no nonsense. It's not priced through the roof, right? It's not really made to be repaired. It's repairable, but it's not really made to be repaired. But you want to talk about, you don't have much money, but you want something pretty consistent that it's not too drama bound. I like Motorola, because if I took that and I said, all right, let's compare Motorola to its next competitor, which would be A series Samsung, A12, A24, A53, A. As long as it starts with letter A. Those, and Samsung's always been this way. Samsung makes expensive phones, they make medium phones, they make cheap phones. But the problem with the medium and the cheap, some of them are amazing. Some of them are terrible. And you can never tell.
Oh.
Right? You can never tell. And it's almost as if Samsung doesn't even know. But after 2 to 3 years, you'll see that, all right, this model is a good, consistent model. It had a little issues in the beginning, but now it's streamlined.
Right.
And it's exactly the way it was every time I turn it on, turn it off. Motorola is all the phones. The way it turns on and the way it starts 2 years later is exactly the way it works.
Wow.
The same speed, the same rate, everything. On Apple's, it's a throttling thing. So it's nice and crisp and fast when you first get it, but slowly gets unthrottled through time. But also, too, the operating system gets bogged down with all your stuff and all their stuff. So the throttling has to happen. But Samsung, they'll have the A series, and you'll have, for 3 years, God, man, these phones are terrible. And then yet another cheap one comes, another $169 Samsung A series. But that phone is amazing. That phone, everybody's fixing them. Everybody's like, no, it does everything I want. No, it doesn't fail. No, it doesn't crash. No, it doesn't this, that, and the other. So I would say, like, Motorola is an unsung hero.
Okay.
So Google, like the Pixels.
Yeah.
They're too intrusive. All right? They're in your business. And they make it known that they're in their business. They're almost aggressive about it.
Wow.
If you get past that part, the convenience of how the Google ecosystem works, that when you go from that phone to another, or you need to recall something, Google's, I remember everything you do.
Yeah.
Right?
Where do you want to be?
Call me an elephant. I'll go remember everything. Right?
That's funny.
But they're too much. They literally know everything on your phone. Right?
Yeah.
Apple knows everything on your phone, but the majority of it they use for their own marketing purposes.
Okay.
They don't resell.
Okay.
Google resells.
Yeah.
Samsung resells. Samsung is less intrusive. Okay? So like when you have backups, so iPhone has the iCloud.
Right.
Google has the Gmail.
Right.
And then Samsungs have the Gmail and have Samsung account.
Right.
So the Samsung account on Samsung devices allows you to remember all the small details, the background color, your text messages, how you want your volume and what ringtone on what. So when you transfer from one Samsung device to the other, it's an exact copy. Where Google is, all you got to do is sign in. I'm going to watch everything. Don't worry about it, bro.
I got you.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you one last question. What features would you like to see that have not yet been implemented? I know there's probably technology out there that hasn't even been invented yet, so to answer this question is kind of hard, but from what we have floating around nowadays.
We are on the precipice of a major shift in how everything operates, and we haven't even touched on it yet, but it's AI.
Right.
AI is so infantile, is so incredibly infantile. It is not something as a consumer we need to even address or worry about. And you are wasting your time and energy involving yourself with it now because it's so infantile. But the automation of your experience in your device supported through AI is something that will make it all streamlined. Imagine a phone that finds a problem and corrects the problem, and you didn't even know you had a problem to begin with.
That's a big deal.
And that's what's going to move forward. Really going to move forward.
Now, would that benefit like connectivity, or would that benefit
all
just
aspects.
Okay.
And mind you now, that is
like not just hardware and software, but everything and everything.
It is. Imagine somebody that walks. Imagine that somebody that is constantly watching your dog for you. You don't have to worry about its safety. If it gets out of the yard, it's going to tell you, "Hey, dog's out of the yard." Right? It's going to, while it's sleeping, it's just watching it. It's just making sure that it's breathing right and everything. What a sigh of relief that we could have. A little crazy to think about, but what is that? Well, that's what AI's future purpose will be initially, be in our devices. It will be a monitoring, self-reliant system. That its concept is to maintain. But we are still talking about a consumer We're still talking about this type of consumer economy that we are in.
Right.
So it may cause more harm in the beginning than good. As in, like iPhones right now, if your microphone doesn't work properly, the phone might go into a rotation. Turn on, turn off,
Right.
turn on, turn off, because it sensed the problem and it thinks turning on and turning off may correct the problem.
Right. Resetting it.
But it's not smart enough to stop. Right? All
Right,
right.
okay.
I got 6 microphones on the iPhone, but this microphone doesn't work. The old iPhones have been like, okay, you have to speak into the top of your phone instead of the bottom of your phone to make a
Right.
phone call. The new iPhones now will just not work. They won't work. Imagine an AI that recognizes the behavior and says, okay, fire up the top microphone. Still let the phone work. Don't crash. Don't ruin their information.
Right.
But constantly bother them with a notification. Hey, you have a problem with the microphone. You got to bring it to a technician. You got to bring it to
Right.
Apple. That's how I want AI to work. That, I think, is beneficial for everyone, and a self-monitoring system will allow that technology to go into customer service and industry and everything, because it's self-monitoring. You give it guidelines of what it needs to do, but only this, and don't give it leniency from that, and allow it for, allow it to have its full capacity. We keep getting into AI in a robotic sense,
Right.
that it's fully autonomous. We're not there yet. We're not even close to there yet. We're still getting movement down. We're still getting balance down.
Right.
I just think, self-monitoring systems is the way AI should move, and I think that's what we're going to see it implemented first.
That's very interesting. I hadn't thought of it. My experience with AI is through music and through art and and we were talking about subliminal advertising earlier, how people can be manipulated, and I understand that everything can be fun and games in the beginning, and people worry about, well, what happens after the beginning. Things do get commercialized, weaponized, and
Yes.
things do get used against us. As we've mentioned, even our cell phones hear us and use what we say to target ads to us.
Yes.
If you were talking about your friend's BMW, all of a sudden you're being served up BMW ads on your Google, and I think that is a legitimate fear for people.
Yes.
Because what happens when the robots determine that we're a problem, and and it's a legitimate concern. I just hope that we at least are smart enough to have one guy with his hand on the plug ready to pull it in case things go crazy.
I think it's going to be, to keep this concept under control, you will have separate autonomous AIs working hand in hand. Like you AI will worry about language.
Right.
You AI will worry about maintenance. You AI will listen and make suggestions. Not one AI to do it all, to have separate. That way you confine the power of what it can do and have it very specific and very narrow.
Limit the liabilities.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, but giving us the control to turn off AI, different components of AI at will, they'll never let us do that.
I understand that.
But I think that's the safe thing. Imagine an AI system that monitors solar panels.
Right.
Right. And so you don't have somebody that needs to go out there. It monitors it. It knows when there's a problem and lets the technicians know when there is a problem. That's where AI should be. That's where the safe introduction and being autonomous. In other words, you don't need to make, if it has a problem, it's going to let you know, hey, I'm having a problem. Have a technician come out and fix on me. So that's where I think the safest place is. But AI it's going to be in everything. Freaking
Inevitable.
toasters.
Yes, it's going to be in everything.
Mm-hmm.
Any last thoughts or comments or advice that you want to give to anybody, or
If you ever have
words of
questions,
advice?
yeah, if you ever have questions, and this will be my last take. The world has changed around us in the fact that experts are a bait and switch now. Okay? When you and I were younger and we walked into, let's say, a Dell store, those people were absolute experts in computing. They understood software, they understood hardware, and this is anyone that when you walked in the store, anyone you would pick up off the floor. That has now been fully converted. And we are talking about a Best Buy, we're talking about an Apple store, we're talking about a Microsoft store, we're talking about a dealership. Everyone, we get sales pitches first, not true advice. Oh, I have a problem. Oh, just replace it. Oh, it can't be fixed. Like, we've gotten lazy in the fact of, hey, be appreciative to what you have and reinvest in what you have. Stop throwing stuff away. So now when you go into when Apple stores first opened, they had experts. And these people wouldn't stop talking with you or get off the phone until your problem was actually fixed. And if they didn't know how to fix your problem, they go, hey, I don't know how to fix your problem, but I'm going to transfer you to somebody that I believe should help us. Us, right?
Right.
Now is that I'll start speaking in circles until you get frustrated and you hang up the phone. Why? Not because that person was a terrible person. Is that what they've done is they've given that person on the phone only so much to know and only so much to do. So once you've reached those borders, they have now become irrelevant. So you can't dig further.
Right.
So it's ask the questions and do not rely on brand, the name. Like when I call Apple, I'm going to speak to an Apple expert. Actually, in my experience, through my personal experience and through my customers' experience, now, not before, now, Apple has turned into a used car dealership. They have not become into a place of knowledge and growth.
It's an interesting perspective.
Yeah. And I'm not just picking on Apple. I'm talking everybody. Best Buy, everyone.
A little side note. I used to be an Apple fanboy back in the late 90s. At the time, they were still using the old System 7. Like, they were still using the very expensive but very slow processors. And it was before the iMacs came out. When Steve Jobs, when their stock was $15 a share, yes. I was a fanboy back then, and it's amazing to see them come from again, you mentioned there was a point where people didn't think they were going to stay in business, and they became this powerhouse. And I guess through life, everything ebbs and flows, and I guess that's part of their business. But to see how far they've come as a company, and to be like, with iPhones are ubiquitous. Mm-hmm. Like that is the cell phone unless you have a Samsung. That is the phone to have, and it's got the best features. And as you mentioned, they've plateaued, but still, they're still considered a quality and a luxury brand.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And
I think in the end, Apple is going to push that we will be the most expensive, but if you want a status symbol, we will be the brand.
Right.
And I think Apple's mantra moving forward will be security. And Samsung, as well as Google, will always end up playing second fiddle to it because Apple is not a closed source software operating system, and where everyone else, or Google is. And that's the inherent problem, just like Windows. Windows is problematic compared to Apple software because open source compared to
closed architecture.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
I understand. Well, Rob, this has been a lot of fun. Thank you very much for spending some time.
I loved it.
This is Interesting People. I'm Dave. This is Rob the Phone Doctor. I'm going to have all his contact information available for you. Check the description down below. Anytime you need any service in the Fort Myers area, do you service outside of Fort Myers?
We do. We have people that drive, but we have people Naples, Lehigh, Sarasota, the Cape.
We will definitely make sure that Rob's information is located for you and easily accessible. Thanks for spending some time with us. Have a great day.